Alright, you beautiful peoples of the internet, it's me, Glyn, and this is Cheapskate Gaming News Tech Reviews. And I thought I'd do a little bit of a review of Far Cry 6. So where to begin? Well, Far Cry 6, large open world game, following on from the Far Cry 5, 4, 3, 2 and the original Far Cry. Now, back when the original Far Cry came out, I can remember playing it on PC years ago, and I used to do a bit of PC gaming. And it was quite a revelation of a game back then, because it was one of the first games to sort of really do, although I don't think it was fully open world, it was kind of sort of in a landscape where it was, you had open world elements. And then Far Cry 2, brilliant game. I've still got memories of that game. Probably the best Far Cry ever. There's still things in Far Cry 2 that they haven't implemented ever since. Things like you could shoot the branches of each individual branch off the tree. The fire was far more sort of realistic. Simulated fire was far more realistic than most other games I've seen up to date. Far Cry 3 was a great game, but obviously it was the physics and all that were peeled back from Far Cry 2. It was a good game. That you've had that Vaz character, he was very memorable. Far Cry 4, yeah, to be honest, never really finished it. People say it was a good game, but it was getting a bit samey by then. Far Cry 5, story was really good in Far Cry 5, but again, very samey. I did finish Far Cry 5, so now we're on to Far Cry 6. Now I have to say, I've put a good few hours into here now. I've probably put about 10 or 15 hours into the game. I haven't finished it, I will admit that now, but I've got a pretty much a good idea of where the game is going and what more is to see in the game. So let's get on to the good things that Far Cry 6 does do. I have to say that the graphics are pretty good, actually. I was quite impressed with the scenescapes. The water effects when you're in the boat, very nice. Very nice day to night cycle. Quite a lot going on. It feels like a living, breathing world. And that part of it is very, very well done. The actual, you can tell sort of when you look at the world that it's a lot of objects that are repeated and placed within the world, but especially when you're up in the helicopters and stuff, the actual islands that you're on do look really nice, and I'll give it that graphically it scores very high graphics. The acting is pretty good in this one. They've got some famous actor playing the main bad guy. I do recognise him off a few films here and there and TV, but I can't put my name on the act. I'm not very good with actors, but he's a fairly good quality actor. Now, I do have a bit of a problem with the story at the start of the game. So you start off, and within the first 2 or 3 minutes, your two best friends get killed. Now, the problem I have with that as part of the story or the story building process is that you never really get to bond with those characters. So when you lose them at the start of the game, you don't feel like personally that your empathy for your character and that you feel a sense of loss. You just don't get that out of the game. So instantly she's on this sort of revenge trip to get back at the people and the regime that's killed her two friends, but you as a player never really get to bond with her two best mates, and I just think that's a lost step in the game. They should have really spent maybe an hour of the game with the friends and maybe done a bit of a story round with the friends and their past, and just build up a bond, so when you do lose those friends, then as a player you feel, oh, I really want to get my revenge back on that bastard that's killed my two mates in the game. But anyway, so that's what it is. So that kind of spoilt it for me. I was already on the back foot then with the story, because after that then basically you join a load of freedom fighters, and what you're trying to do is liberate the island and get your revenge back for the killing, and you're helping people out. Usually involves liberating, very much like all Far Cry games. You've got to go onto the bases, save the bases, take a vehicle from A to B. There's a lot of busy work. And unfortunately, that's where it gets a little bit... We've seen it before, we've done it before. It's Far Cry. It looks good, the acting is good, the story's loose as hell, and the playability is okay. The shooting's not too bad. It's not great by any standards. I've played better shooting games, but it's not bad. The vehicle driving is a bit meh, to be honest. There's better games that do driving within them, open world games where the car driving, you're never going to get perfect car driving physics in open world games, but Far Cry just seems a bit crappy. To want a better term, it does seem a little bit crappy when you're flying or driving the vehicles. And you've got pets in this one. I think you had them in Far Cry 5. And that's another thing that bugs me as well. Within like 5 minutes of starting the game, next thing you know, you've lost your 2 mates and you've got a big pet crocodile. And it's like, what the fuck is this? You know, it's kind of trying to go down the craziness that is Just Cause, but Far Cry isn't Just Cause. Far Cry has always been a sort of more realistic approach to a story and storytelling, whereas Just Cause is just more of a cartoon or comic based style to a game. And unfortunately, because of this, I think Far Cry is trying to do the crazy stuff that games like Just Cause do, but losing its own identity, and but it's always been more of a sort of a filmic type of game, you know, giving you this sort of film-like quality of the story, the graphics, and how you go about telling the story within that world. Now, within the game, there is a lot of collectibles, way too many in my opinion. You've got multiple types of guns, then you can put all different types of scopes on guns, you've got different types of vehicles, you can buff stuff up, you can build up bases. It's trying to do too much in my opinion. Like, have your bases, but why turn it into some sort of like world building game where you've got to then like almost like a god simulator where you've got to start building up the bases then to open up new features in the game. Just have those features open up as you progress through the game. That's a better way of doing it than some sort of turn it into huge collectathon, going about getting bits of this, bits of that, almost like a bit like what Destiny does with its 12,000 different types of consumables that you can pick up. There's too much of that being added into Far Cry now, and to be honest, Ubisoft needs to shell Far Cry for a good few years now. Stop bringing them out as quick as they can, you know, every 2 years, whatever it is, the last one come out, and basically rewrite it, restart it, the way they did with the Tomb Raider games. You know, Tomb Raider had a reboot, and after the reboot it was a lot better game for it. They changed it up. It still followed the same rules as Tomb Raider, but they just changed up how Lara Croft goes about in that world, her skill set and all that. And that's what Far Cry needs. It needs to be basically stop going in the direction it's been going for the last 3 series, halt it, reboot it, and start it again, and hopefully go down more of a Far Cry 2 route. A lot of people didn't like Far Cry 2 because of the malaria aspect, but I'm telling you now, Far Cry 2 was a much better game than 3, 4, 5 and 6. It had elements in that game. The physics were made, like when you blew up a hut in Far Cry 2, the bloody thing exploded, but there's very little damage modelling in Far Cry 6. That's another bugbear I've got. There's all these buildings and literally you can't go in any of them in Far Cry 6. There's only like 1 or 2 buildings inside each base that you can actually walk inside of. That's annoying. You know, we're on next gen now. There's plenty of RAM in these machines. Let's start being able to go into most of the buildings and blow hole. You know, you should have a game where you can blow the hole in the wall, and a bit like, and it's not as if Ubisoft haven't got these models. Rainbow Six does it, where you can shoot holes in walls and then use the hole in the wall to shoot your enemies. So Ubisoft has all the talent there. I mean, when they, like I've said it with the Riders Republic game, it's another example of sticking too much stuff in and forgetting about the quality of the game. Get the quality part right. Don't stick loads of stuff in. Start, if you're making these games, start by making it small and getting everything in a small area working really well, really tight, to get the gameplay, knock that down. And once you've done that, then expand that out and then produce your game around that. But there we go. So we're going to have to give Far Cry 6, I could go on all day about how they should improve it and what they should do, but I'm going to stop there because that's not what I'm here to do. And my reviews will just get too long if we did that. So what I'm going to score it, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's not too bad a game to give it a lower than 6. Although I'm not enjoying it, I can't be asked to finish the game off. You look at games that have just come out recently, like the Halo. Apparently the new Halo Infinite had an absolute nightmare in its production time, but yet they still managed to pull together a really good game. Now the first part is on the rails, and the last part, without giving too much, is on the rails, but the middle part is the open world section. And the open world section in Halo is done much better than Far Cry 6. Far more, where each liberated base that you go to in Halo actually gives you a reason to do it. You get a reward for each one. In Far Cry 6 there's very few rewards that I could work out or see, or I dare say they are there, but they're not very apparent. A lot of times it's just to get bits and bobs and to get resources for then building your guns a workbench, which they appear throughout the map anyway. You know, have the bases that, look, I'm going on too much now, but let's just say have the bases in Far Cry, but once you've liberated the base, then maybe there's a weapon on each base. You know, so if you want that particular handgun, or want that pistol, or if you want that helicopter, then you have to liberate each of the bases to get those, and design it around that, so you have a reason to go and do stuff other than throwing it into a mission and part of a mission. Anyway, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. I can't give it any more than that. I'm not enjoying it. It's just not captured me. It's just not drawing me. I just don't really even want to play it again. I just think it's really boring. It's a boring game, and it's a shame because there's a lot of stuff in the game that could be done so much better, and I blame that on whoever the managers are for the production managers for the game. That Ubisoft needs to really get themselves some better production managers, and those production managers need to turn around and say, look, I don't want to release a game like this, and we need to have a little bit more to grab the players in and keep them playing, because at the moment, if Far Cry 7 came out tomorrow, I'd just ignore it. I won't even bother playing it. Anyway, sorry for a negative review. I'd rather be doing some good reviews of games, but give me good games and I'll give them good reviews. Anyway, Glyn out, Cheapskate Gaming, and I'll see you next one.